Welcome back, everyone, to the video. Today we're doing our mid-season wide receiver rankings. We have a lot of receivers to get into. Some teams have multiple, other teams only have one. It really just depends, but we are, of course, including rookies on this list. And I did add an injured category just because a few guys have been banged up. And even though they are a good receiver, I don't feel good ranking them like D tier, even just because they're injured, if that makes sense. And then other guys have actually suffered, season-ending injury. So, we'll get to all that. But we're just gonna jump right into it. And first is Treylon Burks. Now, I'm gonna be honest. I thought he'd be having a bit of a better year at this point because I thought that Hopkins would actually help open up the field for Burks a bit. But then, Tannehill wasn't playing very well, and the whole Titans offense was kind of dysfunctional. And then, Will Levis comes in, of course. Now it looks a lot different. So I'm not going to give up on him this year. But I would say as of right now, he's probably like D tier. He only has 8 catches on the season. So, there's not a whole lot to work with there. Still, of course, more time for him to play this season and kind of, improve a lot, I guess, with Will Levis there at quarterback. But as of right now, there's just not a whole lot to go off of. And next is Michael Pittman. So this is one where I think I'm going to put him A tier right now. And if you guys are new to my tier list videos, I do, for the sake of time, just kind of, put someone there and then keep going so the video is more fluid rather than like super all over the place, kind of, if that makes sense. But at the end of the video, I will move some players around if I feel that I inappropriately ranked them earlier in the video. So if you are watching this video and you see me rank a player where you don't think they should be ranked, if you want to just skip to the end and see if they remain there before, commenting or something, go for it, because it might change throughout the video if I feel that player needs to move up or something. So Pittman's going to go there. I think he's very much on the line between B and A. And honestly, I wish Richardson never got hurt because Pittman was actually playing pretty well in there with him. And, Minshew's fine, of course, but, I mean, you obviously want your, rookie quarterback you drafted in hopes of being your franchise quarterback in there for a full season. So disappointing, but Pittman, I think, is playing well, and he was playing well with Richardson in there as well. So he's going to go A tier for right now. Next is Van Jefferson. He's also going to go in D tier. And again, if I have someone in D tier that you guys think maybe C tier, I'm not really going to fight you on that. Like, I get it. Like, same with kind of A tier and B tier and stuff like that. Like, if it's just like one spot or one section over, I totally get it if you guys have some players kind of flip-flopped there. But if I have someone in like C that you guys have an A, like there's like a big difference, then it's something like, to talk about. But of course, comment down below as I'm doing this or wherever where you think, either your favorite receiver ranks on this list or wherever your favorite team's receiver should rank on this list. Either one. But yeah, so Van Jefferson, again, not the biggest season, gets traded to the Falcons, hasn't done a whole lot there yet either. So he's going there. And next is Rashad Bateman, who, again, he does have 17 catches on this season. I had to check that because I honestly wasn't sure what he was really doing this year. He's going to go, I think, D tier as well. We have a lot of, like, D tier guys starting here, but I promise you guys it gets better in just a minute. So he's going to go there. You could move him up to C, but honestly, I feel like between, Odell, Mark Andrews, and Zay Flowers, he's just really not the guy right now. He's not really doing a whole lot. Maybe he does kind of step up later in the year, but as of right now, he's just kind of hanging around, if that makes sense. Next is Chris Godwin. I'm going to put him B tier. Honestly, you could probably make a case for him being A tier, but I'm just going to tell you guys right now, I have Mike Evans A tier whenever that time comes. Actually, I was going to go ahead and do it right now, since, might as well, since they're, two receivers on the same team. Godwin's going to go B tier. I think he's a great receiver. I don't think he's, like, having the most productive year ever. I mean, I will say the Buccaneers offense is way better than I thought it would be, like totally owning up to that. I thought that'd be very, very bad, but Baker's played honestly really, really well. Mike Evans, definitely A tier. The dude just has 1,000-yard seasons every year, it feels like, and I believe he's on pace to hit that again this year. So he's going A tier. Godwin's going B tier. But again, if you have them both A tier, that's perfectly valid in my opinion. They're both phenomenal receivers. And then next is Calvin Ridley. So Calvin Ridley, I'm going to put B tier, which I can see people maybe not liking, maybe want me to put him A tier. But in my opinion, he started out really hot this year, and then just kind of fizzled out a little bit. Not that he's like fallen off, but he's just not really consistently putting up good numbers. I do think Christian Kirk is playing well, and we'll get to him at some point in this video. But really just going to go B tier for right now. And Keenan Allen is next. He's going A tier for sure. The Chargers, I really feel like, are better than what the record shows. And Keenan Allen has played very, very well this year. So he's definitely A tier. Not a doubt in my mind there. He's A tier. You can maybe make a case for him being S tier too, honestly. I would honestly understand that. And then next is Marquise Brown. So all things considered, I'm going to put him, I'm going to put him probably B tier. I do think he, could be doing better, but like, let's be real. He was on the Cardinals, who are one of the worst teams in the NFL. I mean, they were supposed to be one of the worst teams in the NFL. They just don't have a lot of talent on that roster right now. And Josh Dobbs, the quarterback, was fine, but at a certain point, you just don't have the players on the team right now to be a good team, and it just really hasn't helped out Marquise Brown at all either. So he's gonna go B tier. He's definitely an A tier receiver in general, but I don't think it's like an A tier season right now, if that makes sense. So he's gonna go B tier. And the next is T Higgins. So I gotta, because I don't want this to like age poorly, but I also have to make sure I'm ranking them as far as the season has gone. But what we've seen the past few weeks, the Bengals are heating up. T Higgins is heating up. He had a really nice game the other night against the Bills. So I'm going to put T Higgins A tier. I think he's a phenomenal receiver. I think he is a wide receiver one on a lot of NFL teams. And I do think like we just saw and what he has been doing somewhat consistently now that Burrow's kind of back, he's putting up numbers that's more like how he usually puts up numbers, basically, those 80-yard receiving 80-yard games, those 90-yard games, 100-yard games. So it's much more like kind of T Higgins at this point. I think the entire Bengals offense was not themselves for a majority of this year so far, but they are definitely heating up in these past few weeks along with T Higgins, so he is going A tier. And then next is DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf is having a good year. I'm going to put him B tier. I think you could probably put him A tier. I would think both are pretty valid there. Personally, I'm going to go B tier. I honestly don't think not like any of the Seahawks receivers are putting up like A tier numbers because they're both getting the ball fairly evenly. I think Metcalf and Lockett's yards are actually very, very similar. So it's not to like tear them down. It's just like they are both pretty even. It's not like one's doing better than the other. I do think the Seahawks have had, they've had a good game, a good year running the ball as well. So I think it's been kind of a balanced offense overall. So he's going to go B tier. Metcalf could definitely be in the A tier, and I honestly wouldn't really bat an eye there. So he's going to go there. Odell is going to be the first receiver to go into the C tier because I do think Odell, for what he's gone through this year, because he's already been injured a couple of times this year, is having a somewhat solid year. He did score for the first time this past week. So, good for Odell. He's torn his ACL twice now. He's been injured this year. And I do think he's playing a part in this Ravens offense. Even though he's not putting up the craziest numbers, I think he is doing more than Bateman. And I think he is, just being a very reliable target for Lamar Jackson. And the Ravens offense, and the Ravens as a whole, are a very, very good team right now in the NFL. Maybe some people are saying like team to beat. So, good on Odell. He's definitely playing this part, in my opinion. And then next is Nico Collins. He is going A tier. He is really helping CJ Stroud have, let's be real, probably Offensive Rookie of the Year. After especially this past week, 407 yards, 5 touchdowns for CJ Stroud. And that guy right there, Nico Collins, has played a big part in this season so far. So he is definitely going to go A tier. I love what I've seen from him so far. And then next is one of Bryce Young's receivers, DJ Chark. So he's going to go, I guess C tier. He does have a few touchdowns on the season, which I do think warrants him to be in the C tier rather than the D tier because none of those guys on there have any touchdowns. But man, DJ Chark is arguably Bryce Young's second best target, and he just really is not doing a whole lot. So he's going to go C tier. A very disappointing year all around for the Panthers. I just do not even want to get into right now. Next is Christian Watson, who is also going to go probably C tier. I don't think he's had like a standout year, but to be fair, this is the first season with all of the guys on offense kind of meshing together with Jordan Love now in there. So I think as the season goes on, I think he can definitely start to produce better numbers as they kind of start to mesh together better. Because again, this is Jordan Love's first full season starting. Of course, they're having struggles, and of course, it's also reflecting on some of their players' production, like Christian Watson. So he is in the C tier for this year so far, but his potential is obviously B, A tier type receiver, but right now it's just really not there for me to rank him much higher than C tier. And next is Chase Claypool. There we go. Brandon Cooks is next. So Brandon Cooks, this past week has been, I think, a bit more involved than previous weeks. I would like to see him be more involved because I honestly don't think I can rank him much higher than C tier. I wouldn't say he's a disappointment by any means because the Cowboys offense is just so loaded. There's a lot of guys getting open, and even though he's not getting the ball, doesn't mean he's not doing his job. It's just the play might not be ran for him. I remember earlier this year, the Cowboys actually talked about getting the ball to their tight ends more, including not even giving CeeDee Lamb the ball. But then now, as of lately, they're giving CeeDee Lamb the ball a lot more. It just happens to not be falling on Brandon Cooks' lap, basically, as far as production goes. And it's not really a knock on him. He's a great receiver, and when he does get the ball, he does produce. He's just not really getting the ball a whole lot. So I don't think he's D tier by any means, but I don't think he's quite B tier yet either. He probably falls in like that C tier range this year so far. Next is Curtis Samuel, who is actually having a pretty good year. I wouldn't say like, crazy year by any means, but I would say a C tier year as of right now. I had to check because honestly, the Washington offense is just so crazy to me. I didn't know how he was doing, but apparently he has around 330 yards with a few touchdowns. So good on him. But an offense where like Sam Howell gets sacked like 5 times a game, and then you have Terry McLaurin doing well, Jahan Dotson doing well. I honestly didn't know what to expect from him. So honestly, good on him. I wouldn't say B tier quite yet, because I do think they have, like I said, other weapons that are kind of producing a bit more than him. But still a fairly solid year for Curtis Samuel so far. Next is Deebo Samuel. So it's up to you guys how you would rank this. Personally, I'm putting him into the injured section. I don't think there's really enough for me to rank him, because if I were to rank him based on how I've ranked other people, Deebo would probably fall into like the C tier, maybe B tier range, and not gonna lie, I don't love that. So he's gonna go in the injured category. I don't think it's really fair to rank him there when he hasn't played since like October 8th or something. It's been a while, so he's gonna go in the injured category. Next is DeAndre Hopkins, who's going in the A tier. Obviously that monster game with whenever Will Levis stepped in there. And since then, it seems like they are making a point to try and get him the ball, which honestly, thank you, because I'm not sure why you wouldn't try and do that. I remember I made a video in the offseason talking about how much he could open up the Titans offense, honestly. If you're running the ball with Derrick Henry, then you have Hopkins, and then you have Treylon Burks. I thought the ball would be distributed a lot better than what it has been, but with Will Levis in there, I do think there's a lot of potential for the Titans offense to really take it to the next level. And it starts with DeAndre Hopkins. He's a great receiver. He's not young, but I mean, he put up 3 touchdowns like we just saw in that game a couple weeks ago. So still a great receiver. Definitely having an A tier season as of right now. And then next is Jamar Chase, the first receiver to go into the S tier range. And what's crazy is he's an S tier receiver in my opinion so far this year, and he has had a few down weeks whenever the Bengals are really struggling, and he is still putting up really good numbers. As of right now, he has that back injury. Will he play through it? Will he not? I don't really know. So maybe 5 weeks from now, he would find himself in the injured category. Hopefully not. But from what he's shown right now, he's been very, very good. Like he said, he's always open. So he's going to the S tier range. And then next is Deontay Johnson. So he's going to go in the B tier range. I do think he's a good receiver, but the Steelers' offense is just so questionable to me. And he was also hurt for a large part of this year, although he did get his first touchdown in like a while. So congrats to him on that. But I do think he just kind of finds himself in that B tier range. I think he's a good receiver, and he's definitely an A tier receiver when he kind of is hitting his potential. But the Steelers' offense is really just not maximizing that right now. So he's going to go into the B tier category. And then next is DJ Moore. DJ Moore is going to go in the A tier range. And he's having a good year. He's one of the bright spots on that Bears team that has struggled a lot. But I mean, he's putting up great numbers, especially that huge game against, I don't even remember who that was. Was it Washington, I think, where they won that? I can't remember who it was. But yeah, big numbers in that game. And now tonight he plays the Panthers. I can only assume he's going to have a monster game against the Panthers, because the Panthers, nothing can ever go right for them. They're just a poverty franchise. So he's going in the A tier. Next is Jahan Dotson, who is going to go in the C tier range. Although I do think he's kind of had some big games recently, so maybe he makes his way into like that B tier category later on this year. But as of right now, he's just going to go in the C tier range. I think the Washington offense has just such high potential, but because of the poor offensive line play, getting Sam Howell sacked like 10 times a game, and them losing games they probably should have won, they're just not having the season they probably want to up until this point. But season's not over by any means. They're in a very tough division, so it's going to be tough for them to kind of make the playoffs in the end. But, anything's possible there. But either way, Jahan Dotson, C tier as of right now. Next, A.J. Brown, who is definitely S tier. He is having probably the best year of his career. And he's just a huge, deep threat guy. I mean, he can just go up and get it, even in contested catches. He's pretty good after the catch. I mean, he's just really, really good all around. And yeah, so he's going S tier. Eagles are having another great year, and he is a massive part of that. So he's going S tier. Next is Tyler Boyd, who is going to go C tier. It's just so hard for a wide receiver 3 to get a lot of production on that Bengals team, because you have guys like Jamar Chase and T. Higgins above you. As of right now, Jamar Chase is banged up. T. Higgins, I think now is also banged up, like a hamstring issue. So maybe Boyd gets more work, later this year. But as of right now, there's not a whole lot there. So he's going to fall into like that C tier category. And then next is Drake London. Drake London is one that is like so. I'm on the fence. Like he could probably be C tier, but he could probably be B tier too. So I might put him C tier. I might move him up later. Honestly, I don't know. If you guys have him B tier or C tier, let me know. I think it's a very tough one to rank. He's going to go C tier as of right now, though. Next is Gabe Davis, who is going to go into the B tier range. I think Davis honestly has a lot of potential. I know last year, I think some Bills fans told me he was a bit inconsistent for them. He's still a nice big play receiver. I mean, he makes a lot of big plays for him down the field. It really seems to come out clutch for him a lot of times. So this year is also a bit better in my opinion. I think he's doing a bit better yardage-wise and with consistency. So he's going to go B tier. Some people might not like that, but that's just where I'm going to have to put him right now. Then next is Michael Gallup, who's going to go C tier or maybe D tier. I mean, I had to check this too, honestly. I'm not going to lie. He only had about 240 yards on the season. So I think he might fit the D tier range better. Maybe an argument for C tier, but honestly, I just don't know if I can put him there as of right now. But to be fair, he actually is pretty similar to Christian Watson. So you know what? We'll just move him up there to C tier. And you know what? If you guys have him in D tier, that's fine. It is what it is. Then next is Garrett Wilson, who is definitely A tier. And every time a Jets game comes on, I'm just so disappointed Aaron Rodgers is not playing because that team would be so good if he was in there. It's really crazy. Wilson still putting up A tier receiver numbers, even with Zach Wilson in there, who was better than last year. Still not great, but I can only imagine what they'd be doing with Aaron Rodgers in there. And it just sucks that he happened to get injured this year. So still, though, A tier receiver so far. Next, Isaiah Hodgins, who's going to go in the C tier range. The Giants as a whole are just having a bad year, so, I mean, what can you really expect from Isaiah Hodgins at this point? He's just going to go in the C tier. Next is Jacoby Myers, who, I mean, do we put him in? I'm going to put him in A tier. I think he's had a really, really good year. I think much better than what a lot of people thought he would do. I think the Patriots should have re-signed him. I'm not sure why you didn't make that a priority and instead you went and got Juju. And I'm so mad about that because my first instinct that happened was, wow, bad trade. I don't like that. And then it actually grew on me, and I now realize I should have just stuck with my original opinion because it has just not worked out for them. But Jacoby Myers had a very good season. I'm going to put him A tier for right now. Next is Jerry Jeudy, who's going to go in the C tier range. He's having a fine year, but, like, the Broncos are just not very good, to be honest. Like, 330 yards and, like, a touchdown is what he has, which is pretty similar to other guys in this category as well. His name got brought up a lot before the trade deadline. I really honestly thought the Panthers would make a move at him, but of course their front office is asleep half the time, so that didn't happen. But I am surprised they didn't move him at all to any other team. So I guess it is what it is. C tier year for him so far. Next is Brandon Ayuk, who's going to go A tier. I think he is such a good receiver, and he's often overlooked because of the other weapons on this team. But man, Brandon Ayuk, great receiver. The offense honestly would not be the same without him. He really helps open up the field and is a nice guy after the catch as well. So he is going A tier. And the next one's pretty obvious. Tyreek Hill, definitely S tier. Has a real shot to break that 2,000 yard mark this year. And it's just unreal how good of a receiver he is. It really is. I know he said, I think prior to this year, when it came to beating guys off the line, he like never worked on his releases, which if you don't know what that is, it's basically like moves receivers do, footwork, whatever it is, to get by the corner that is, obviously guarding them. And Tyreek Hill never really did that. He just relied on his speed, which is insane at the NFL level. He just never really worked on his releases. So super talented receiver, definitely S tier. Next is Justin Jefferson. So he's also going to go in the injured category for me. I know he's also supposed to miss this week as well. So he's missed a lot of time. Obviously, when he's in, he is one of the best receivers in the entire NFL, and he would be S tier. But I'm not going to rank him C tier because he's been hurt, or B tier because he's been hurt, when clearly he's much better than that, but he's just been injured, so he's going to fall into the injured category. And also, injuries, just as kind of a side note, injuries have sucked this year. They have hit, like, all positions a lot. It's been very disappointing. But anyway, next up is Jordan Addison, who has stepped up huge in the absence of Justin Jefferson. He's going to go A tier. I think he has the second most touchdowns in the NFL, but behind Tyreek Hill, so obviously massive for a rookie receiver to do that. And now you have Josh Dobbs in there, so Vikings fans, definitely still some hope. You'll have Jefferson come back pretty soon, I think, so very nice there. Yeah, but Jordan Addison, great replacement for Adam Thielen. Like, honestly, great draft pick. Vikings just always tend to get some really, really good wide receivers, so Jordan Addison, definitely A tier. Next is Jackson Smith and Jigba, and I'm not going to lie, I thought he'd be doing a bit better than what he's doing right now at this point in the year. But at the end of the day, like I said before, there's just so many good weapons on that Seahawks offense to where a receiver is not really going to surpass the others by a whole lot, because Metcalf and Lockett are pretty similar as far as stats go, and Jigba has about half of their yards, and he is a rookie after all. So I think he's going to go C tier for right now. I don't think I really put him much higher than that, but I do think, maybe Lockett moves on in a few years because he's getting a bit older, or anything like that. I think his role is only going to get bigger in the future, and so honestly, a solid rookie year, if he ends up with like 600 yards, I think would honestly be a pretty nice sign from them. I'm not sure if he'd hit that, but I do think he is getting a bit better, and his role is opening up a bit more as the season has gone on. All right, and next up we have Amari Cooper, who is definitely A tier. Honestly, stat-wise, you can make a case for him being S tier. I'm going to stick with him just in the A tier for right now, though. I think he's having a great year, especially because the Cleveland offense is taking a lot of hits this year. Watson's been hurt, multiple times. You have PJ Walker stepping in and getting a win against the 49ers. And then, of course, Nick Chubb goes down. So, a very up and down year. Just emotional roller coaster, really, for the Browns offense. But Cooper has been very, very good for them. So, huge props to him there. Definitely an A-tier receiver. And now I have to start scrolling down a little bit. So, Chris Olave, also an A-tier receiver. He's having a great year. And again, a not great offense. I really think Alvin Kamara and Chris Olave is about all the Saints offense has at this point, with the occasional big play to Rashid Shaheed. So, yeah, I think Chris Olave definitely a great receiver, that we saw that last year in his rookie year. He's only continued what he did last year, so good year from him, too. I'm excited to see how he ends the season, and he's definitely A tier. And then we have Juju Smith-Schuster. This is what I already talked about. I'm putting him D tier just because he pissed me off. But seriously, jokes aside, I am so annoyed that I got tricked into all of a sudden believing that was a good move, because I knew they should not have done that. I thought they should have prioritized keeping Jacoby Myers and going after Hopkins, if anything else. I didn't like the Zeke move either. I thought it wasn't really necessary, and I changed my mind. That's on me, but I'm taking it out on Juju. He's going in the D tier. Next is Christian Kirk, though. He is going A tier. I think he's having a great year. He is statistically doing a bit better than Calvin Ridley up until this point, so good on him. I remember just, 2 years ago, a year ago, people were saying he was, overpaid, and then last year he had a great year, and those narratives really went out the window. So, and I also think the Jaguars are also starting to heat up a bit on offense as well. So I think both him and Ridley's opportunities will only start getting bigger at this point in the year. Next is KJ Osborne, who I do think is a very solid receiver. I'm going to put him in C tier. He could probably go B tier, but I just think C tier is what fits him better as of right now. I think Jordan Addison is kind of taking that step above him as far as like next man up type of thing. So still C tier, still a good receiver for the Vikings. Like I said, the Vikings have a very good wide receiver room, but he's going to go C tier right now because also with Jefferson coming back soon, his role is only going to go back down anyway. So he's going to fall in that C tier range. Next is Devontae Adams. So this is what's really tough for me because I don't have a set number of guys I put in the S tier range. I just kind of do it off how I think. Okay, let me rephrase that. I don't have like, okay, I need 6 guys for that tier. I just kind of do it how I see it, basically. And Devontae Adams is one that really trips me up because I want to put him S tier, but he hasn't really had an S tier year as of right now. I think it's been very similar to guys in the A tier range rather than guys in the S tier range. But what I will say, though, is the Raiders have made a lot of changes, and I do think Adams is going to get more involved. But because we haven't seen that yet, I can't really rank him S tier. If you guys put him S tier, obviously I'm not going to fight that. I mean, Adams is an amazing receiver, one of the best in the NFL. So you could put him S tier. I think statistically right now, well, honestly, you know what? No, never mind. Looking at it, I feel like he's got to be S tier. I do think his numbers aren't as good as the guys in S tier, but to kind of counter what I just said, even though his numbers aren't as good, his situation is way worse than the guys in that S tier range, and his numbers are still pretty similar. So we'll actually put him S tier because honestly, Adams is just in a horrible spot, and he is somehow actually putting up very good numbers. So he's going in S tier. I changed my mind. Next up, we have Cooper Kupp, and he is going to go in the injured tier. He missed a lot of this year, which it's really disappointing. But honestly, he has like 364 yards. I don't feel good enough putting him in like the C tier, B tier range because he's an amazing receiver. He just hasn't played a whole lot compared to other guys. So he's going in the injured category. Next is Darnell Mooney. He's going C tier. I don't love him. I'm not gonna lie. I kind of fell for his hype last year when the Bears disappointed, and he hasn't really done a whole lot this year either. So he's gonna go in the C tier range. Next is CD Lamb. He is going to go in the S tier range. He has been on fire lately, putting up amazing numbers. And they lost a very close game to the Eagles this past weekend, but the Cowboys still a great team, and Dak gets a lot of hate, but he is honestly having a pretty good year. I make plenty of Dak jokes, but he is actually having a good year, and a large part of it is because of that guy right there. So he is going in S tier, at least for right now. And then next is Devontae Smith, who is, it's getting kind of hard to actually rank these people now because the lists are so wide. But anyway, he's going A tier, amazing receiver, one of the best wide receiver twos in the entire NFL. It's really more like 1A and 1B as far as AJ Brown and him. Same goes for Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, that kind of thing. So he's going A tier. Next is Stephon Diggs. He is going S tier for sure, as I have to make my way up here again. I think he is the receiving leader right now in the NFL. I could be wrong about that, but I believe he's up there, one or two, very high up there. I do think he's still one of the best receivers in the entire NFL. The Bills are certainly having their struggles, though. Actually, the playoffs started today. They wouldn't even make it, which is surprising. I picked the Dolphins to win that division, but I didn't think that the Bills would not be in the playoff picture. Obviously still plenty of season left, but, it is something to monitor because the AFC is incredibly competitive. But Stephon Diggs, one of the reasons the Bills are always so competitive is him, so he's going in the S tier. Next up, it's Allen Lazard, who's going to go in the C tier range. I do think he's a good receiver, but again, I think we're doing a lot more with Rodgers in there, and Rodgers isn't in there, so he's not doing a whole lot. He's going to go in the C tier. Tyler Lockett is also going to go in the B tier with DK Metcalf. Again, two great receivers. If you want to put both in the A tier, I guess you can. I think statistically they kind of fall into the B tier category a bit better. But again, two phenomenal receivers. The Seahawks are just a really fun offense to watch. So Lockett, Metcalf both are B tier. I did not realize Lockett was that far away from Metcalf whenever I talked about him earlier, but it's what it is. Next, Mecole Hardman. He's going to go D tier. He really does not, hasn't done a whole lot. I think he only has about 30 receiving yards on the entire season. So, there's not really any case for me to move him up higher than D tier. Mike Williams, that's one where, he has fallen in the injured category, unfortunately. He just, it sucks. It does suck because he's a great wide receiver too. Like I said, as far as T. Higgins, Jamar Chase goes, and AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, him and Keenan Allen are very close to that. But it's just really unfortunate with them, not being at that point because he's injured. So sucks to see, but he is in that category right there. Next is Amon-Ra St. Brown. He is definitely S tier. I think he's a great receiver. The Lions are such a fun team to watch this year. I'm so happy they're finally kind of hitting their stride and really putting up good numbers as a team. So he is definitely an S tier receiver. And then next is Michael Thomas. And look, I'm not going to lie. I said I was not going to get on board the Michael Thomas hype because he always gets injured. Statistically, though, he's not doing too bad. I'm not going to lie. He's not doing that bad. I'm going to put him probably B tier. You can make a case for him being A tier. I don't think he's consistent enough to be A tier, but statistically, for who I have there, you could probably make that case. But he's going to go in the B tier. Still crazy, though, for him because I honestly thought his chances were a bit over when it came to, kind of being that high up on a wide receiver rankings in 2023. But here we are. So props to Michael Thomas. Next is Marquez Valdes-Scantling. He is going to go C tier. I think he's a fine receiver. He doesn't get the ball, I think, enough to really be much higher than C tier. So he's just going to kind of find himself there. Then Devontae Parker is D tier. I did not buy into his hype. I don't think he's very good at this point in his career. The Patriots offense is not that good at this point. So, yeah, not really a whole lot there. He's going D tier. Next is George Pickens. And I'm going to put him B tier, which might seem like a stretch because his stats, really don't show that. But I just think he's in a horrible position right now. I think what he's doing is not being recognized much because the Steelers' offense is just terrible. He doesn't get the ball as much as he should. Although I will say, not celebrating your teammate scoring a touchdown for the first time in a long time is not a great look, especially then going to social media and saying, free me, after you couldn't toe drag within a 5-foot area of the end zone. So not the best look in the world. You could probably put him down in the C tier range. I'm going to have him B tier, though. Next is Quentin Johnston. So this is a really tough one because, again, nothing. He pretty much did nothing for the first few weeks. He has started to do a bit more in the Chargers' more recent games, but I think I have to put him D tier because he really statistically just is not much higher than that right now. I wouldn't be surprised if he does more as the season goes on, because like I said, he is starting to do a bit better. But it's just not there right now. It's just really not. So he's going to have to go in the D tier. All right, next up is Hunter Renfrow, who's going to unfortunately go in the D tier. He just hasn't done a whole lot. He hasn't really been a big point in the Raiders offense. His name was also thrown around during the trade deadline. Didn't end up getting traded. So again, he's just kind of stuck not having a big role this year. So pretty disappointing, because he was pretty good a couple seasons ago. But he is in the D tier range. Robert Woods is having a fairly solid year for someone his age. He's going to go C tier. I think he's still, a solid veteran receiver. He's not putting up crazy numbers by any means, but I think he does fall into like that C tier category as of right now. So he's going to go there. Next is Rondale Moore, who is going to go in the D tier range. Because again, just not doing a whole lot. Now that Kyler Murray's back, it's definitely possible he gets more of a role. But as of right now, there's just nothing for me to really kind of rank him much higher than that. So he's going to have to go there. Next is Darius Slayton, who has to go in like that C tier range. Again, the Giants offense and the Giants as a whole, just really not that good. So Slayton's kind of doing what he can, I guess, but again, not crazy numbers, but just kind of good enough for that C tier category. Next is Courtland Sutton, who just like Jerry Jeudy is going to go in the C tier. The Broncos, again, not very good. Their offense not very good. You guys have heard it 100 times now. He's got to go in the C tier range. Terry McLaurin, though, definitely A tier. He's always just been so good, so underrated. He's got to go A tier. The biggest receiver in Washington, and Washington has some very high passing games, and McLaurin is always a huge part of that. I mean, Sam Howell is number 2 in passing yards as of right now. Washington is not afraid to throw the ball, and it's because you have guys like McLaurin that are able to just come down with it. Also because a lot of times they're losing, which also kind of inflates that, but you get my point. McLaurin, A-tier receiver, and Adam Thielen, I mean, A-tier receiver. Statistically, you could probably say S-tier compared to the other guys. I'm not going to do that because it would just not look right, and because I don't think he is an S-tier receiver. I think he's just getting force-fed the ball so much, including when the Panthers are down. It's a little misleading because, sometimes it is kind of garbage time stats. But don't get me wrong, Thielen has been huge all year for the Panthers. I honestly cannot even imagine what the offense would look like without Adam Thielen. I think he also, though, still has some more left in the tank. I don't think it's like his final year, like a send-off by any means. I think, honestly, if he was like a wide receiver 2 on any other team that was like, competent on like the Panthers, I think he'd honestly be pretty solid. I mean, he's very solid in Carolina, so I think he'd be a very solid at a lot of other places, just as a nice veteran receiver. So he is going A tier. Big surprise from him this season. Kadarius Toney's just going to go C tier. You could probably put him D tier, but I honestly just, it is what it is. If you have him D tier, you have him D tier. He's been a bit of a disappointment this year. Hasn't made a lot of big plays like he kind of showed in the Super Bowl. So, it's tough for him, but he's just going to have to go C tier. Jalen Waddle is next. He is going A tier for sure. Him and Tyreek Hill, fast wide receiver duo in the NFL. One of the best wide receiver duos in the entire NFL, like I said before, as far as Chase, Higgins. You guys get at this point in the video. I've been recording for so long at this point. But yeah, Waddle, definitely an A tier receiver. Zay Flowers, you could probably put him A tier. I'm going to go B tier because I think it kind of suits him better at this point. But you could definitely make a case for him being A tier. I think he's really stepped in and been the biggest receiver for the Ravens, which I kind of expected, I'm not going to lie. And I kind of said that in like my Ravens season preview this year, that like his potential, especially his after the catch ability, is something that the Ravens have really lacked in years past. So big for him. He's come up big for them a lot this year. And the Ravens, again, some people say are the AFC, or the team to beat in the AFC. And Zay Flowers does play a massive role in that offense. So very nice season from him. Next is Zay Jones. Kind of a weird note to end off on, but he's just going to go in the C tier range. Very solid receiver, but again, nothing crazy there. And that is going to be the wide receiver tier list. So now looking at this, guys, comment down below anything you think I got right or I got wrong. If someone should be moved down, if someone should be moved up. I've been looking over this in between cuts, and I honestly kind of like the way it looked. I'm not going to move anything right now. You could probably move George Pickens down. You can maybe even move Michael Thomas up. You could probably move DK Metcalf up. You can maybe move Tyler Lockett up. Maybe Chris Godwin. So I do see some things like that. Nothing that I'm going to take the time to really change as of right now, in my opinion. But you guys, let me know down below what you agree with, what you disagree with. Be sure to subscribe to my channel for more rankings like this, because I do them very, very often. These are my mid-season wide receiver rankings. If you didn't see my mid-season quarterback rankings, go check that out. I'm going to do more of these throughout the year in the off season. If you guys have stuck on my channel, then you know I do that for kind of like, ranking draft classes, ranking teams going into next year, ranking players going into next year, all that kind of stuff. So it's all football content on the channel one way or another, whether it's Madden or NFL. So thank you guys for watching. I do really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.